Yeah.
I think they're at the little bit relationship to women.
What you got? I'm off the clock. We got to give Jen a hard time.
You gotta watch your interview. That's what I'm saying. Well, then, are you gonna, what about really good? We're gonna trade it.
Just the job.
Yep. One ticket cleared. Yeah, just download a fresh one from your email.
Yeah, Paul using you.
Can you test it, Jason? See if you flip through.
Doesn't have third row. Doesn't have third row. That was the year before they put in third row. It's a big thing. People, you know, when they're people look for family cars.
Or special meeting. Some action city council on August 15th. And we'll just finish with item number 2, and item 3, and with item number 4, 3.
Mayor, members of council, we have before you tonight the proposed annual budget for fiscal year 2022-23. Just want to remind you of your city council strategic plan, the areas of emphasis. We talked about governance, where we established the rules of governance to promote civil discourse, consistent, predictable deliberation, and exemplary action. We also want to make sure we emphasize economic development, promote a strong, diverse economy that strengthens local sales tax, property tax, while also contributing to a high quality of life. Also, one area of emphasis is our image and communication, where we proactively work to provide accurate, timely communications to the citizens and improve the image of the community. And as you well know, with a lot of our CIP projects, the last emphasis is on infrastructure. We want to provide excellent infrastructure and facilities that meet the needs of the citizens and businesses and staff. And so in preparing for the budget, some key budget priorities that we worked on that we identified in the prior meeting kind of falls along with some of those areas of emphasis, where we talked about compensation study, retain and attract employees. We talked about a utility rate study, facility assessment, talked about designing and finding funding for a new fire station, needing wayfinding and downtown signage. We want to keep up our street CIP, some renovations of the public works facilities, bring back City University, look at impact fee study and implementation of that, If there's any staffing needs, we want to look at staffing, continue professional development and training for our staff. Of course, continue looking for funding for engineering and possible construction for a railroad crossing grade separation. We wanted to look at parking study, police department staffing and pay, bring back a full-time parks and recreation staff along with programming and activity. Someone mentioned about exterior painting of the Horlock House. Of course, increase marketing tourism to bring more visitors and sales tax revenue. And you asked us to do all this and maintain the current tax rate. When we talk about the Navasota's economic picture, so kind of let you know a couple things we've got active. Residential, as you know, we have Pecan Lakes Estates Phase 3 and 4. We also have Hidden Hills Phase 1 and Staffing going out there and making sure that project is up and ready to go. Commercial, on the commercial side, we still have the C fuel store there on the north side by Hidden Hills. Jack in the Box, I just went through planning and zoning on a couple of replats. Team Elliott Ford, if you've been out by there, it's starting to make some headway. We've seen some concrete work and some pillars for the light post. Also, we got the submittal from Walmart to do some interior remodeling. So nothing major on the outside, mainly just in the interior. Part of that you'll see is related to the pharmacy area. The Young Life building remodels. If you've been over on the side of the railroad tracks there, on if you're going right on railroad, you would see it. They're doing remodeling. Many of you probably saw Navasota Welding Supply. We did the groundbreaking for that. They're hopefully going to be open in the next 6 months. And if you've driven by where the Chicken Express is going, it's already gone vertical. They actually have a roof going in, parking lots done there. So some great new developments that are on the way. When we look at the historical residential building permit, you'll notice year to date, we're at 82 compared to last year's, and these are calendar year, not fiscal year, at 93. So based on that, it looks like we're going, if we keep going, it could be 140 by December. And then you look at our historical new improvements in personal property as we do our truth in taxation, what was sent out to you a couple weeks ago, how we calculate our tax rate. Part of that has new value that was included, and that's around $19.1 million compared to 18.5 for the previous year. That's an additional 675,000 in new value, and also it's around 3.7 higher than last year's. As I mentioned in the previous council meeting, I wanted to kind of go over the budget highlights. So tonight you're going to see everything's been prepared for the general fund in relation to a tax decrease. When we did the truth in taxation calculations, we'll talk about the tax rate in a little bit, but it's decreasing from 0.5693 to 5560. So that is 55.6 cents per $100 assessed valuation. There's no proposed utility rate increases. There's a pass-through trash rate increase of 4.83%. You'll see at a future council meeting. We'll bring that. Public Services has that agreement where in February that increase will take place. We propose adding new staff in key areas. We've added 6 positions. 3 of those are in police. It'll be patrol officers. We've added 1 dispatcher, 1 firefighter, and a gas technician. Also, as part of the compensation study plan that we're doing right now, we've allotted nearly $1.5 million. That includes benefits for FICA and TMRS. And that's through all funds, general fund, water, sewer, and gas, where we have employees programmed. And that is to be implemented in January. So we've allotted, like I said, 1.5. Our TMRS rate decreased just a little bit, went from 6.81% to 6.31%, but there was some savings when you have over 114 positions. That does have quite a bit of savings when you cast that across all the different funds. There's been no significant changes in employee health benefits, and that's on the employee side as well as the city side. So we were able to got about a net 0 increase on the payments. Fund balance, general fund, we're at 30.2%. Fund balance in the water fund, we're at 104.6%. And fund balance in the natural gas fund is at 27.5%. and the fund balance in the wastewater fund is at 28.7%. Previously, I mentioned that I went to staff and said, I need your wish list. Their wish list was around $13.5 million between general fund, water, gas, wastewater, economic development, capital projects, and hotel motel. And we're going to fund around 12.5 of that. Majority of that is CIP projects. One of the things that's not in the budget that I wanted to bring up to you prior to you getting the budget, I had reached out to Dr. Music, and Dr. Music, when he gave me a tour when I first came, I learned about the Little Rattler Academy. Little Rattler Academy is an in-house daycare for children of the district that are 6 weeks to 48 months. And it's a very minimal cost to their employees. And it's basically that they don't make any money out of it. They break even. They bring in enough employees to be able to oversee the program. It's divided between infants, toddlers, and preschool. And you'll see there, it ranges from $4,500 a year up to $5,250 a year. And there's a $100 registration fee. Now they operate based on the NISD's calendar. So when I say a full year, it's really just it's really about 8 months. And so it goes along August through May. And if the NISD's closed during those for spring, for a spring break or Christmas break and those things, the program is not active. And so when I met with a lot of our staff, I asked staff, I was like, hey, is this something that you might be interested in? There was an overwhelming majority that said, yes, I would love this. I love this idea. There are some staff that doesn't have kids that said, hey, this is probably going to be the only way I'm going to be able to have kids, is to have this available to us. And so one of the things I'd like for you to consider, and because it's not an ongoing expense, is to allow the city as a benefit. It's one of the things that HR can tout and put out as a benefit, is by providing some subsidies to our employees for these types of costs. And so the city proposal that I have down before you here on this is maybe we fund half of the cost for the first child and maybe 1/4 of the cost of the second child. That's up for discussion. It's something that I think that we're going to have a discussion maybe next Monday, that way you can, it's the first time I'm bringing it to you, and maybe we can discuss these items and see what your thoughts are. But I'd like for you to think about that. Think about if it's something that you would like for us to do. And I've not put it in the budget, but I'm not asking for anything to be put in the budget. I think we can find some savings again, because it's not an ongoing expense. When I met with staff, I got less than 10 people that would act, or 10 kids that would probably be utilizing that program through our employees. And so again, it's something that I'd like for you to consider. And I think it'd be a great benefit. And Dr. Music said, since we don't have a lot of people that would be joining in, there's no additional cost to us outside of what's been presented here. And so they don't have to go and hire a new employee just for the city to join the program. As you know, if you don't know, but governmental accounting is a little bit different than what you do at your house. So we have a checkbook. Yeah, we have a checkbook, and it's called a fund. And so we have a lot of funds around here. We have the general fund, we have a water, gas, and wastewater. We have economic development, capital projects, hotel, motel, and debt service. And we got some other funds. So we'll talk about those other funds a little bit. They're the small funds. But your general fund, your economic development, capital projects, the hotel, motel, and debt service are considered governmental funds. So they operate a little different because they don't do depreciation. We don't record assets really in them. But your water, gas, and wastewater are what you're used to on businesses. They're supposed to be operated as a business. The service you provide, you're supposed to charge the fees to support, to pay 100% of those costs, and it's supposed to break even enough to keep a small fund balance in the mix, and that's it. So for next year, the proposal is $33.1 million in revenues, and 36.2 million in expenses for all of your funds. Now, the internal transfers, those are transfers between funds. So the general fund, we might have a debt we need to pay, and the debt service fund pays it. So we transfer money from the general fund to the debt service. So you can't count that as a true, one's a revenue, one's an expense, and so they net out. So in reality, even though you think we got $36 million in expenses, it's really actually 32, because you take out those net differences. So for the fiscal year 2022-23, your total budget for the entire city is around $32.5 million of expenses. Kind of explain a little bit better here. So if you look on the revenue side, you got your general fund is around 37% of your total 33. Water is around 9.4. Gas is around 6.5, and wastewater is around 2.2. And then on your expenses, again, it kind of follows the same reasoning. General fund revenues. So general fund revenues, we break those up into categories. So you have property tax. So property tax was also including delinquent taxes, any of those type fees. IDAs, those are industrial development agreements where we charge the industrial area 50% of their assessed valuations. We charge them for them to pay in lieu of having to pay taxes. So, and we have an agreement, and that agreement runs out next year. So it's one of the things that staff's going to be working on over the next year, is trying to enter into another multi-year agreement for our IDAs. And what we call pilots. So a pilot is a payment in lieu of taxes. So we, your water, first of all, we got what we call franchise fees. Franchise fees are fees that we charge utilities for the use of our right of ways. So Energy and Mid-South, in order for the lines for direct Suddenlink and CenturyLink to use our right of ways, they pay us a percentage based on their gross revenue. That's what franchise fees are. Pilots are just like franchise fees, except it's on for our utilities. So our water, sewer, and gas pay the general fund a franchise fee for those services, and it's around 9% of gross revenue. And so that's what the pilot number is. Of course, you know, mixed beverages. So mixed beverages is one of the large increases. That increase, of course, is due for Rail and Rye and the Speakeasy. You can imagine those two are the biggest mixed beverages that we've added in the last year. So we've increased that budget for next year. And of course, your property tax did increase, and that's because assessed valuations increased around 18%. Down at the very bottom where we have other, we have a negative 58.4%. In this current year, the reason it's decreasing for next year is, you'll remember back in November and then in January, we entered into a small lease purchase agreement, one for the fire truck, and then one also for a bunch of public works pieces of equipment. So they send us the money, and that's reported as revenue. So it's a one-time cost, and so it's not there for next year, so that's why it's decreased. Tax rate. As I mentioned before, the tax rate is decreasing, going from 56.93 down to 55.60. And that also means that your M&O rate, which is maintenance operation, which is your general fund percentage, is going down from 50 down to 49.68. And our interest in seeking rate, which is the amount to pay for debt service, is decreasing from 6.8 cents down to 5.9 cents. Average home value did increase, and that average value increase, when you look at that, it means that a home compared to 145,169 last year is going to produce a increase in your taxes of $110.23 a year, which comes out to around 30 cents a day. or around $9.19 a month. To put that in perspective, it costs $9.73 to get a pizza from Pizza Hut with the special they have for the carryout, one topping large. So if you can go without one pizza a month, and I get several pizzas a month, you can take that small increase. Also want to talk about the no new revenue tax and the voter approval tax rate, remind you again. So the no new revenue tax, that is the effective tax rate. In the previous way that they referred to as the effective tax rate, that's the amount, if you have two pieces of property on the rolls at the same time last year, that's what would give you the same amount of revenue this year. Your voter approval tax rate is the rollback tax rate. Before, you could actually go over the rollback rate and you didn't have to have a tax election unless somebody said, hey, come out through a flag and said, hey, we don't like this. We get a petition and a petition to have a rollback election. Now, if you go over that, automatic election, and so that's why we're capped at the 5560. When you look at your assessed valuations, of course, the average, even though you take in the 17%, is around 9% increase. General fund expenditures. I'm not going to go over too much of the percentage changes because the majority of those percentage changes you'll see when we actually go through departments' budgets, but a lot of those increases that you'll see for instance, development services, 60.7%. Well, we increased it 300,000 because we're going to try to get a grant for our comp plan and our zoning ordinance to look at redoing our zoning ordinance and have them review those. Police and animal control. Add 4 new police or 3 new police officers and dispatcher, that's going to increase. Marketing communications, they'll go over those increases as well. Economic development, and tourism. Again, when we go over those, you'll actually see what those increases are. But again, total 3.6% increase, and that's pretty good based on if you look at the CPI now at 9.1. I think it was reduced to 8.7 last week. So you're taking your proposed budget for next year versus your end of year estimate, and it's only increasing 3.6%. General fund summary here. So if you look at your proposed budget there, the unassigned fund balance we're projecting is 3.9, right at $4 million. A 90-day our fund balance policy requires us to keep 90 days of expenditures, and that's 3.3. So we have a percentage of fund balances at 30%, and that is around 109 days. General fund, major budget items. So I'm gonna go over the items on the left-hand side. Those items on the left-hand side, they equate to $11.3 million. You'll remember your general fund expenditure budget, proposed budget, is 13.2. So everything on the left-hand side there represents 86% of the budget. So $7 million is in personnel, and that's represented by 5.4 million of your current existing employees and their benefits. And that's around 96.2 full-time equivalent employees, okay? Market adjustments, as I mentioned, we're allocating 1.1 million in the general fund for market adjustments. Once the comp plan or the compensation study is done, when they come back and say, okay, we've made all these adjustments, here are the steps and the grades and everything, we'll figure out how we're going to be able to divvy up the 1.1 million based on that plan. And then we added 3 patrol officers, dispatcher, and firefighter. Just the personnel and benefits section is around 302. So of that 13 million, 7 million of it is personnel. Non-payroll supplementals. So if you remember those supplementals in your book that I passed out to you, there's a page in there that talked about had a summary page. I think it was on, started on page 43. It looked like this. So it had the listed supplemental items. So the non-payroll supplementals, the new items, represented 1.6. So there's a laundry list of that. And when staff goes through their presentations for their departments, they'll talk about each one of those supplementals. So you don't have to know a lot about it right now. Just to let you know, that equals 1.6. Also in the general fund is our Republic Services garbage contract. That is 1.1 million, or nearly 1.2 million. Our annual street maintenance program is around $547,000. Of that, around $124,000 is what we send over to our debt service to pay for the 2020 CIP utility project that we've got going now. So a portion of that 547 goes to pay for that, and then the other 470 is what Jose is working on now with Gessner Engineering to do the street project. We have capital lease purchase payments. So we got that money to purchase the fire truck and the public works equipment. Now we've got to pay for it. In addition to that, we also have agreements with Enterprise. So Enterprise provides our vehicles for police, for public works, for code enforcement, and for the city hall, and for parks and facility maintenance and parks and rec. And so those payments roll into our what we call our capital lease purchase payments, and that's around $500,000 we spend in the general fund for that. We have our annual mowing contract is around $250,000. And in everybody's budget, I didn't go in there and list out everybody's motor vehicle, gasoline, electricity. I put it all here. So for the general fund, it's around $144,000 in vehicle gasoline. And that's nearly double what it was last year. So we've had an increase. Electricity is increased nearly 20% too. So around 114,000. Again, what you're seeing here represents 86% of the general fund expenditure. Water fund. So the water fund, big picture here. One of the big things that I want to bring out here is the miscellaneous income. Miscellaneous income, you'll see this on the water, you'll see it on the gas, and you'll see it on the wastewater. A decrease of 94%, and it's 100,000. So that's where we programmed selling of the public works warehouse. We budgeted getting $300,000, and so we split it up a third, a third, and a third. And then you'll see on the other side, we also the cost of the warehouse is being spent a third, a third, a third. So just want to draw your attention to revenue. Why did revenue decrease so much? That's why it decreased. Expenditures. So in the water fund, we have non-departmental water production, water distribution, and utility improvement. So non-departmental, two things happen in either any of the funds that have non-departmental. You either have personnel, and that's where I put your market adjustments with the FICA and the TMRS, and then also any transfers that happen. So in non-departmental there, that is all that is market adjustment. So we're budgeting around 142,000 just for the water fund for market adjustments based on the compensation study. Water production increase there. That is related to the water well of 2 million. And then the water distribution, that huge increase there, 4 million of that is related to the water tower and also related to the fire hydrant project, and then we're programming in utilities to the north end of the airport. That is the majority of the expenditures in the water fund. And then we also supposed to budget depreciation, so we factored in 200,000 for depreciation. Major water fund budget items. Again, the things on the left amount to nearly $9.6 million of a $10 million budget. Now you're looking at 95% of the budget items on the left-hand side. 504,000 is related to personnel, which 362,000 is related to existing salaries of personnel, which is 6 FTEs, full-time equivalent employees. As I mentioned, 142 is for market adjustments. We've got the capital items I mentioned of 6.7. We also have debt service payments. So for other debt service items in the past, there was the 2020 utility project. We've also got a 2016, and I think there's a couple of other ones. That's $818,000. And then we have what we call reimbursement to general fund for costs. So departments in the general fund provide services to all of the utility funds, the water, gas, and sewer. So Lance's group, he's over utility billing. Well, those utility billing employees and some of his time and his budget analyst, as well as the grant coordinator, utility billing is 100% on the utility side, all their work. So we take a percentage of the entire department's budget, and we allocate that, a third to the water fund, a third to the gas fund, and a third to the wastewater fund. Or the wastewater fund, the gas fund, they allocate a third to the general fund. So that's what that's for. So you'll see a $603,000 transfer from all the funds to the general. East Side Water Plant Engineering, so it's $350,000. That's related to the contract that we awarded earlier this year for Belial to do the water tower. As I mentioned, the pilot, that is how much the franchise fee that the water fund pays to the general fund for the gross revenue. And $115,000 for electricity. We've also programmed in $100,000 for fire hydrant maintenance program. So those fire hydrants that we're changing out, we also need to also program some money for just the maintenance of those fire hydrants, so we don't have to replace them all at one time again. Capital lease purchase payments is around $31,000, and motor vehicle gasoline is $25,000. When we talk about water fund summary and fund balance, so the 286 number of days excess, so your cash and ending fund balance, basically, we don't call it fund balance in your enterprise fund, your water, gas, and sewer. We call them just cash and investments. And so that's what cash you have on hand. Nearly 3.3. Well, your requirement's only 782. And the reason is you don't factor in, when you look at total expenses, that 10 million is inflated by nearly 7 million of your capital, your CIP. Because we've got bond proceeds, we're going to issue debt for some of it, and we also have grants that we're going to be using for those. So if you have a revenue source that's going to specifically pay for an expenditure, you don't need to include that expenditure as part of fund balance, and I don't need to withhold money to go and pay for that debt because I've already got a revenue source that's guaranteed. And so 90 days cash expenses is 782. That means excess, we have nearly $2.5 million excess. Number of days excess is 286, because that equals to right at 100, total, no, 376 days total, and 104.6% fund balance. Natural gas. Natural gas, as I mentioned, is one of the items that we're going to have to look at very closely, because the amount that we're paying for gas versus how much we're billing, it looks like there's some discrepancies in there. And so Lance is working really closely with Jennifer and trying to figure out what that piece is. But when we looked at the budget here, that's why you see projected 26.7, is because we think we've got it figured out on the proposed, but trying to figure out what's happening now is the part we're trying to figure out moving forward. Again, miscellaneous income is decreasing, and that the reason it's decreasing is because of the sale of the warehouse. On the expense side, gas distribution, the increase there. We've got a couple of capital projects that we're looking at in the natural gas side. One of them happens to be with the Hollister regulator, and also the high pressure loop system that's out for Pecan Lakes. And so that's around nearly 1.7 million dollars in CIP. So that's why you see that increase there. Major budget items for the natural gas fund. Total on the left-hand side represents 6.4 million of a 6.6, around $6.7 million budget. So this equals around 96% of your expenditures. 302,000 of it is related to personnel. That's existing personnel is 180, and that existing personnel, we're actually adding one person there as a gas technician, around $43,000, and we've got market adjustments of nearly 80,000 for personnel in that that fund. Gas purchases is around 3.4. As I mentioned, the CIP project there, the Hollister gas regulatory system, and also the loop system is around 1.6. That reimbursement to the general fund for the cost of related general fund expenses for the utility, 603. The pilot, the amount of gross revenue times the franchise that we charge them is around 408,000. And then also they're going to pay 1/3 of the cost of the impact fee study of 50,000. Motor vehicle gasoline is 15,000. And the total capital lease and purchase payments for enterprise and those products that we have through there is around $12,000. On the natural gas fund, we have a total ending cash around 1.4 million. 90 days cash expense requirement is 1.2. So we only have 126,698,000. You'll notice into the actual end of year estimate, we drew down $2 million. Part of that $2 million was the amount we drew down for our payment to Symmetry for the 2021 ice storm that you had. So that's part of that drawdown. So that equals around 99 days total cash reserve that we have, which represents 27.5% of expenses. The wastewater fund, again, 100,000 was a decrease for the income related to the water fund, selling the warehouse, and then on expenses. We've got a couple of items that were actually, even though it shows decreases there, we do have actually an increase on the capital side. We do have a CIP project around $395,000 that we'll talk about toward the end of the presentation related to the wastewater treatment plant phase 2. And there's a couple of items that we need to purchase in there, which is around $395,000. When you actually get over to the wastewater major budget items, this represents 93% of the total 2.7 million expenses. We've got around, I think it's 4 full-time equivalents that represent that 3.75 million, 375,000. Existing is 272,000, and then we're adding 102 for market adjustments when the compensation study comes in. As I mentioned, phase 2 of the wastewater treatment plant is around 395. Depreciation is 320,000. Debt service payments. So this is one of the funds we actually had to issue debt, and so that's around 293,000. The pilot, which is the franchise fee that we pay a percentage of gross revenue, is around 162,000. And then we spend around we budget 105,000 for maintenance of wastewater treatment plant. Doesn't mean that we actually spend all of it, but we need to actually have it available in case there's some major items that we need to have maintenance on throughout the year. Capital lease and purchase payments are a little bit more because those are related to lease purchase that we did back in January of around 100,000. So I think those payments are for 8 years. And the electricity is 94,000. And then 1/3 of the cost of the impact fee study is $50,000, and we're spending around $18,500 in motor vehicle gasoline for those employees. Wastewater. For cash ending is around $500,000. Our 90-day requirement is just a little under that. We're excess of around 73,000. So number of days excess is 13 days. So that gives us a total of 103 days. So you got the 13 plus the 90, and that equals 28.9%. Then what I mentioned earlier, other funds. So we have other funds out there. We have a cemetery permanent fund. So we're ending fund balances around 350,000. We have a cemetery operating that Susie works with, where we actually do some items related to cemetery. Majority of that is grave closures and cemetery space, selling cemetery spaces and all that. So it's around, $57,000 in revenue we get from that. Small budget in the board of fireman services related to the retirement volunteers. And then we also have our grants. So grants, your revenues and expenditures equal. And so what we do is we budget funds in case we get a grant. Okay, so we can't spend money if we don't have, we say we get a grant, but we don't have any money. We have to go through this huge process of doing a budget amendment, and then we have to justify why we have it. Or if we actually budget something, so we budget expenses, but we also budget the revenue so that they net out. So there's not much change there. Economic development. So this is Economic Development Corporation. So they're budgeting around $307,000 for expenditures. We have capital projects. Capital projects, we're budgeting for $750,000. $500,000 of that is for the design of the fire station, and $250,000 is design for other facilities. When the facility assessment comes back, we're thinking, we probably need to work at the public works, animal shelter, or the library, wherever we want to be able to have some funds available to do some engineering and design for whatever we want to plan for. And so total project is $750,000. Hotel motel fund expenditures around $335,000. Debt service is pays. These are our debt service payments around $1.7 million. And the foundation of community projects, your 501c3 is $2,000. So that is your high levels. Now I'm going to get into actual department budgets here. So I'm going to go first, and then when I'm done here, departments is actually going to get up and go over their departments, and we'll work all the way through until we get to those other funds that I just showed you. So we're going to start with general fund, and then we'll go to water, gas, and sewer. Talking about general government. So general government, as I mentioned, we have what we call non-departmental. Non-departmental, we have personnel services. That's where, we budgeted $1.1 million for market adjustments, which includes FICA and TMRS for your general fund employees. That's it. How did I come up with that amount? Yes. So I looked at our total personnel and determined a couple key positions and what is the market showing for that. And I saw what that percentage was, calculated it out. So that adjustment, I put on there anywhere from 8,000 to 20,000. I think the average came up to around $17,000 for average across. I want employees to understand that doesn't mean they're getting 17,000. I have budgeted for it. So, and that includes benefits too. So if compensation comes in and says an employee needs a 50% pay raise, we might have some funds for it, because there might be somebody else that comes in and says they only need a 5%. So by having that, now we have funds, and I'll tell you, we met with our consultant that's working on the actual compensation study. We kicked it off. They weren't able to start until last week. It's projected to be finished on November 11th. But when we told her that how much we budgeted, they don't get that often. They get it as, we want you to do it, and then we're going to put it on the shelf, and we hope we can find a way to fund it sometime. And so they were very pleased to know that they've got something to work with and able to, because then they know they'll put a lot of work into it and it'll be a good product and we'll be able to actually move forward with keeping that plan alive and making sure that we follow through with it. I know our employees, if they're gonna hold me accountable to it, because I've told them that we're doing it, we budgeted, and so I think that's a huge piece. The other piece I want to let you know is, in putting the budget together, I forego, yeah, forget, yeah. So we did not pay, from the general fund this year or next year's, 2020 CO. So the 2020 utility projects, we issued debt for that $10 million. It's around $124,000 that the general fund pays for, the water fund pays for, the wastewater fund pays for, and the capital improvement pays $400,000, I think is the way it was. So we forego the general fund doing that. And the reason is our debt service fund had a huge fund balance. We checked with our bond counsel and we do not have a requirement to keep a significant amount of fund balance in your debt service. Your debt service fund is supposed to be used to pay for debt. And you're supposed to transfer enough over to pay for the debt. It's not supposed to be a place where you start accumulating money. It's supposed to be used to pay the debt. So Lance and I, we agreed, and we're actually pulling down on that fund balance. One of the way we did was by not having to charge the general fund for this year and for next year. Supplemental requests. So what you're going to see for every department, you're going to actually see expenditure, and then you'll actually see if there's any staffing, and then we're going to talk about supplemental requests and whether the request, you'll have the request on the left-hand side, unless you're the police department, you get a whole page to yourself. Or you, and then you'll have on the right-hand side the supplemental action fund. Administration. So administration, that's where Susie and I and Michelle. Everybody know Michelle? This is where we reside in the administration budget. So when you're looking at the budget there, professional fees is decreasing for next year around $95,000. The reason is that is one-time cost we're having this year. 49,000 of that is the TERS, implementing the TERS, and then the other part is related to the facility assessment. So that goes away. As I said, that's where Susie and I and Michelle reside. And then also we have not funded the ACM position. And so you're not going to see that position in the budget or any funding for that position as well. Major budget items in administration, staff development and memberships is about other than personnel. That's about all that's in there. Administration, there is one supplemental. It's around $2,700. That is for myself, and there'll be others in staff that will present this as well. There's several ICSC trade shows. There's 2 of those. I think one of them is Red River in Dallas, which is a 2-day event. And so this is additional training for, we don't get to go to those that often. And so every couple years, I think we've got programmed for Rain and myself and Lupe and 2 or 3 EDC board members to go this year. So that's what this request is for. So it's actually a one-time cost because don't plan on going every year. City Council, this is y'all's budget. And so kind of let you know what y'all, what we budgeted for y'all, or what you've asked me to include. Of course, there's no staffing in there. But your major budget items, of course, is the $6,000 for Grimes County Health. We've got year 2 for scanning of the minute books. That's a project that Susie's worked with y'all in the past that you agreed on. It's around $24,000. HDL, sales tax consultant, that's that group that actually does our sales tax analysis, is around $2,000. We also pay for our legal counsel. That's where Carrie's agreement is, and it's around $131,000. Ordinance codifications is around $9,800. Our regular elections in May is $7,500. And the proposed 380 agreement for the Jack in the Box that you just approved. The last meeting is 73,000. And then you had asked me earlier in the year to program something for charter, if we want to have a charter election. So I put that in there. And again, after the budget process, if the charter election is something that you decide you want to move forward with, then we need to start working on that, put a charter committee together. Because we'll need to call that in February. We're going to have it on the May election. I'll go over municipal court real quick. Municipal court, there's no major budget items. We've got the judge in there. And that's what, when you probably saw how many FTEs we have in the general fund, 94.2. She's the 0.2 because she's part-time. And so we also have Rochelle, the municipal clerk, court clerk. And again, it's basically all personnel or any other expenses. So there's really not any major budget items or anything in there. This time I'm going to turn it over to Peggy to go over her budget unless you have any questions on what I've gone over.
Good evening. Human resources. Human Resource Department staffing is the Human Resource Director, along with the Human Resource Specialist. That was that department. I made you for the fiscal year 2023. Our major budget items are the third-party benefits consultants, which is Princeton Benefits, and it's at $34,256, which is the monthly billing form, and also 243 of that is for the goes into the navigator system, which Princeton goes out and receive all bids and stuff for us for our benefits for the new fiscal year, and they come back and report it to us. They put it into the navigator system and we open it up for open enrollment. Along with that, any changes that employees themselves can go in and make any changes in the navigator system for as any qualified events, any address changes, any add to the benefits, and then they will give us a copy of it. Also with that, we have the flexible spending account that's set up. Flexible spending account set up along with administration, and that is budgeted for $2,250. Our employee service award is $2,000 budget, and what that consists of is our employees that we have recognized with services. I think we will have about 11 of them this year, and the cost that we give them is $50 per year that they have been employed to see the Navasota. Employee appreciation events, we have $2,000 budget for that. And that part of that is our public week services, staff breakfast meetings, and employee and family gatherings twice a year. That will cover that. We have budget for that. New employees jackets, $2,000. And we will have about 16 of those employees. And then drug testing at $3,500. Supplemental request. Supplemental request was for, let's see. Right now we have the Time Clock Plus software that we're using, but we're requesting to get Tyler Technology Encode executive time for our time in attendance, because it will be a better service, more qualified for the system that we have with Encode right now. Be a perfect match with it, and then it would also increase in, oh, wait, we're not gonna go back, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're better. Okay. We asked for the executive time because it's increased efficiency. It handles time tracking rules and pay codes, manage entering and tracking time off requests. It will calculate attendance automatically. It will cut down on errors, reduce errors by eliminating manual tasks with collecting and entering time and data into the payroll, accurate, actual time worked, automatic for calculation and entering employees' hours each pay period, access to historical data through audit trails and report to ensure secure and effective management. And the integration is that it's powerful and user-friendly, web-based interface for all of our staff. The payroll software will integrate with payroll software in numerous interfaces with web browser, time clock, and phones. And it's dedicated technology and training support. So we were requesting that in our supplemental request. And also we was requesting the human resource information system for, along with tumblers for all of our new employees. And the cost for the, both the executive time and attendance and the human resource information system was $31,574. Our supplemental funded was for the executive time and attendance software, which is $16,711. Thank you all.
Mayor, council, going into mine. Financial services. As you can see, our payroll personnel services went up. But we brought in the grant coordinator this year and we pulled more in that position from the Parks and the Rec Center at the time, so that's why. Actually went up this way. In that, we have personnel, $422,294. Maintenance and services, $71,500. Professional fees, $136,456. Miscellaneous, $13,904, for a total budget of $649,665. We have 7 employees, myself, budget analyst, utility billing manager, 8 utility billing clerk, grant coordinator, meter technician, and receptionist. Like I said, the grant coordinator was a new position we repurposed this year for Parks and Facilities Maintenance. Major budget items, the audit, $38,255. Payment to the appraisal district, one for appraisals of $78,831, and one for tax collection of $16,380. We got $12,000 in there for staff development and $805 for the GFOA budget and audit award, which we're going to go out for this year on both the audit and no guarantee we'll get it the first year, but we're going to try. A supplemental request, I had additional memberships for staffing, but due to some recent turnover in my department, that membership wasn't needed because I'm on the training vehicle. They really want to pull one in. That's the finance budget. Go ahead. Take note, take note.
Buckle in.
City council, if you carry a gun, you have to.
The budget from last year to this year, equal out just a little bit. The proposed side, so we have 33 employees right now. The additional 4 obviously will go up. Materials and supplies, a lot of that rifles and the server. Maintenance is a lot of fuel and maintaining the new patrol units. You can see it's like 33 and a half, but we have 33 employees currently right now. Proposed we've had 3 patrol officers and 1 dispatcher. Most of our major budget items, Truth on Street National Night Out, that's the trophies and the pamphlets. So for Blue Santas, we purchased gifts for the 75 kids last year. We went up a little bit. We actually purchased gifts last year for almost 90, so we know we're gonna at least be at 75 or more this year with the interest of the ISD. Body worn cameras, almost $2,500 a piece, and they're required by law. I think we got a little deal on it, around $1,500, but everything we have has to have a license, an annual license. Body worn camera, radio, and so forth. We're gonna move, we did purchase a server last year, that's why the budget's a bit higher. This year, we're gonna try to get going with is getting on a cloud-based server system. Cheaper, more reliable, doesn't break down as electricity and so forth. So that's gonna download all our body worn cameras to the cloud. We spoke about the Motorola radios for us in the fire department. That would be our first payment of a 7-year payment, which they weren't due until early next year. We've already received them, which is good. We don't still have to pay till next year. VDCOG, same thing. That's the licensing, annual licensing that we have to pay for to have 911 services to dispatch. And then the speed trailer equipped with LPR and the 2 cameras. That's the total about the price. And remember we spoke about the grant. So guys, when I asked them about this, they thought it was a Christmas list. This is cut down a lot. First time doing this and incorporate the whole department into, hey, what do we need, what can we use? We just go through it. The patrol officers, dispatchers, a lot of training, ammunition prices have gone up, the cameras. One police Tahoe, chief of police, previous Tahoe, when we promoted up to CID, an officer, we had to give that investigator vehicle, so that's where that vehicle went. So chief of police position is filled, and we have to replace that vehicle. Another stuff records was looking for a storage system, CID, the LiDAR system, that is a laser radar system. They can point and shoot versus the one that's attached to the dash, where they can park their car sideways and put down the road versus having to point the vehicle. Correlate this is scanning fingerprints, rifle racks. So rifles are currently in the back of patrol cars, locked up in a box behind the back door. One of the patrol rifles that brought easier access, takes off several minutes of time in an emergency situation. $500 a piece. Dispatch console workstations, those were used. We got them donated. I can tell you how old they are. They really weren't designed for dispatch, but we made them work. Revenue monitors and so forth. They just better for dispatch. This is what was funded to 3 patrol officers, and that price is everything. South Dakota patrol officer, just with uniform, the equipment on the belts and everything else, it's almost $20,000 just for uniforms, the firearms, ammunition, the radios that includes the radio for each one. Dispatch is a lot easier. They don't need as much equipment. Just their salary and the uniform in dispatch and their training. The Tahoe, like I said, replace the Tahoe with the investigations, the LiDAR device, the racks, and the workstations.
And Mayor and Council, just real quick on a key on that. So that each of those 3 patrol officers, so that's 3 new vehicles. And then we talked about the Tahoe for the chief of police. So that's 4. So if you know what the lag time in getting a new vehicle is, and able to get a new vehicle is pretty hard. So I think on Thursday or Friday last week, we were called and told that they had 4 available. So we locked in those 4. So we're purchasing 4 vehicles, whether you you fund the positions or not. We don't know when we'll be able to get another Tahoe in. So when they told us we had them available, we need it, we went on and locked that in and then we'll move forward with that.
Yeah, because we're still waiting on vehicles from this last year that we did first around with it.
You never know what's available when it is, and when you get a vehicle, you have to outfit it, so that's another $25,000 probably putting inside of the vehicle. A lot easier on animal control. Yeah, everything pretty much was a lot lower this year. We were short on animal control officers. We do currently have 1.5. Because we have a part-time right now, but we still have one full-time position open, so we have one full-time for next year, and then we'll still have application open for the next one. Materials and supplies, that's vaccinations and maintenance and services, is also vet bills. Microchipping, spay, neutering, rabies shot, that's everything when animal comes in that we spend money on to get them prepped for adoption, and veterinary services and anything extra that we may get in animal and needs veterinary services are just keep them alive or something. Locate them on the streets. Being that one animal control officer right now is brand new, we didn't really staff up. But as for this, the fencing, actually, we have the money from this year, so we've got this covered at a very good deal. And so we request anything else. Questions?
You got it done, they're not gonna ask.
Fire department looking at a $1.1 million budget for this year, the majority of that is personnel. That personnel, we were requesting one more firefighter position. Materials and supplies, that's going to be the very we purchase, supplies. And that's also where our fuel comes out, that's a big chunk of that, 68,000. Vehicle maintenance, equipment maintenance, building maintenance. That keeps all of our items. Capital outlay, that's gonna be the cost of the annual payments. On the truck and truck about a couple years ago, small. And that is our makeup. We have myself. Normally run with 6 full-time firefighters, 2 per shift. We're adding 1 firefighter to one of the shifts. And then we supplement with part-time firefighters that are about 6, so trying to keep the minimum staffing of 3 of them. Major items, just as Chief Mize talked about, the Motorola radios that have come in. Still missing some of the parts, but our cost is about $17,000 a year on a 7-year payment. I think we got sent off for programming this week.
Later this week, yes.
Later this week, and start mounting mobiles into the trucks. Annual important testing of all of our equipment. We have to have our ladders, hoses, air packs, all have to be tested. And some of the cascade system has to be tested before. We'll continue to purchase. We do a 5-set year rotation. Every year we purchase 5 sets of gear. It's on they expire at 10 years if they can make it that long. Due to the wear and tear through the years that start failing, they're in the test. Radios, communications, that's going to go back to actual batteries, pagers for our volunteers and stuff every year. And then starting last year, we started providing annual medical evaluations for NFPA 1582 to all of our firefighters. So they go through a pretty strenuous medical evaluation and the company that comes in and tests all of them. Supplementals. We requested 3 firefighters, 1 per shift. Doesn't look like we didn't fund that, so we funded 1. Unlike the police department, but we don't have to provide each other their own vehicle.
I know it cost $1 million.
Did request a fire marshal. That was a position that we had several years ago. We got, during the year, lost that position. And try to have that back. Hopefully we can do that maybe next year. And then we say we have to test our hoses every year, and over the years between fires, wear and tear, and then some of them aging out and not passing tests. Requested several sections of others. Our SCBA cylinders, believe it or not, they're 15 years old and they are aging out in 2 years, and so we're just trying to split up the cost. We'll half of them this year and half next year. We'll do purchasing all at the same time. We're spending that money inside.
Mayor and Council, one of the things I want to let you know, so later on, we'll talk about long-term financial planning. And in that, we have programmed in for the next 2 more years to fund a firefighter each year. So the idea is hopefully by the time he gets his new fire station, he will have 3 people per shift full-time. So just kind of put that in the back of your mind. When we talk about adding new personnel, I've got it programmed in there for him to get a firefighter for the next 2 years. So he has 3. That was that. And of course, I know what am I gonna do with this one? Well, I got it. We can only fund so much. And so if we do have some additional funding, say for instance, your compensation study doesn't come in what it is, that's already been budgeted in personnel. And we've already factored that in the long-term plan as though it was 100% funded. So if the compensation study comes in, we only need to use 800,000, and we have some additional funding then at mid-year, then we can come to you and say, hey, council, we have this additional funding. Is this an option you want to do? Maybe push, do you want more, add the other 2 firefighters? Do you want to add another dispatcher? Do you want to add a fire marshal? Those are questions we'll have if we have some additional funding. I just want to kind of put that in the back of your brain, so you know it's going to be coming at some point.
Emergency management, no staffing in there besides myself, the fire department. Really, the only thing that we have in there, and you'll see this, it's maintaining. Be able to keep people.
Yeah, I have a question. Are we gonna need the weather bug once we get the AWAS in?
Yes, she says yes. I question that myself. The only thing is it does give us that camera that's up there that we finally got back working after almost a year, but like everybody else, getting parts and getting pieces in to fix the old camera. I think they're just really replacing it.
Well, it does give us a predictability such as it is.
Yeah.
If we don't have to make one.
Not being 100% familiar with what we're going to get out of the AWAS. At least it gives us a year to see how.
But we'll get the stats, we'll get what exists right now with the atmospheric pressure, the temperature, and wind. But not necessarily what it's going to be in 2 hours.
I like the camera piece.
Yeah, and for us, it's, for the fire department, one of the reasons we wanted it is when we get on some of these fires or get on hazmat, and dispatch has that, they have the full one, they can give us directions, temperature, pressure and stuff, so.
Brandon.
Brandon. So Mayor and Council, hopefully you actually were able to look in the book here, and so we made some changes to the org chart, and I'm gonna draw your attention. So Raina's been funded for a while in development services, so we pulled her out. She's now in her own department, economic development. And so she is over marketing communications and the library. And with the new Parks and Rec position coming on too, I put Parks and Rec under her. Now, this is different than Parks and Facility Maintenance. This is Parks and Recreation. So basically what we call community and economic development. So that's where, that's her new program. So
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council. So as Jason mentioned, here's the Economic Development Department budget for the next year. And so since it is a new department, you'll see that there's not a lot of information on it, just for the proposed section. And so all economic development related expenses that aren't being funded out of the Economic Development Corporation right now will be moved out of Development Services budget and put it into the Economic Development budget for the following year.
I have a question. At one time, the Economic Development Director was funded partially through the Economic Council, Economic Development Council.
that was probably true, but when she actually gets into the Economic Development Corporation's budget, you'll understand real quick, we can't do that.
Okay.
So the major budget items for the upcoming year are staff development. So this includes annual trainings and conferences such as the Texas Municipal League and the Texas Economic Development Council conferences, and then also any other trainings or events that are hosted by the BDCOG or of that nature. And then also memberships, and these are ongoing membership dues for professional organizations such as TCMA, Texas Downtown Association. And then the last one is award application fees. So some organizations such as the International Economic Development Council and Texas Downtown Association charge small fees to nominate and apply for achievement awards. So this is that category right there. And then there was one supplemental request, and this is for courses and training that will go towards certification of becoming a certified economic developer. And that's hosted through the Oklahoma University Economic Development Institute. And that's all I had for economic development. If you have any questions on that, I will be going over the EDC budget in a little bit. And so then the next section is Parks and Recreation. So similar to what Jason said, this is a new department. So some of the expenditures that used to be within the Parks and Facility Maintenance Department will now be moved into here. That's why it just has the proposed budget. And so that'll be one full-time position, the Parks and Recreation Specialist. And I know last year we had a full-time Parks and Rec Specialist, or the year before, that worked for the city for a few months. And then by the time he left, we've been going through some changes. So over the last several months, Eric with code enforcement has been doing some of the programming part-time. And so once we're able to hire somebody else on, that'll relieve him from doing the programming, and then that'll be bringing on this new person to take over those responsibilities and expand the programming for Parks and Rec. And then this position will also be over the swimming pool and swimming programs, and also the Navasota Center. The major budget items for this department are the annual Kid Fish event, Pretty City Committee expenses, and the trash off event. And then supplemental requests include programming for Parks and Recreation, so such as daddy-daughter dance, nature camp, art classes, pool programming, such as swim lessons, soccer, etc. Program instructors and teachers, so paying for the qualified instructors to be able to teach some of these programs and courses. And then city attire for new employees and seasonal employees falls within the Navasota logo shirts and caps. And that was it for this department. And then we have the swimming pool. So the new Parks and Rec Specialist will also be over the swimming pool and seasonal staffing. And so if you look at the current end of year estimate, we'll be spending $45,000 this year, and that's to replace 3 pool pumps, controllers, and run all new electrical wiring. And this should be done by the end of September. And the Parks and Facility Maintenance Department is working on that right now to ensure that the pool will be running properly. And then I'll go over it a little bit more when I get into the supplemental. The two major budget items for this department are pool chemicals and the pool vacuum. And the supplemental request will be to outsource cleaning and maintenance of the swimming pool during the snow season. So the current plan is to start the pool up in March of next year and keep it running throughout the year. And city staff would be responsible for maintaining the pool during the off season from September to February. And then this supplemental request is to outsource the cleaning of the pool to Brazos Valley Pool and Hot Tubs from March to August during the in season. That way it will alleviate the lifeguards who have been in previous years have been responsible for cleaning the pool during the season. And that was it for this department. So y'all have any questions? Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here today to talk about the marketing communications budget as well as the tourism budget. The council's priority to see an increase in marketing and tourism to bring more visitors and sales tax revenue is the focus in this year's marketing communications and tourism budget. Previously, this position was split between just marketing and communications and the tourism budget. Today, President Services is budgeted solely from the marketing communications. The marketing communications budget has increased to assist in accomplishing the strategic goals, 3.1, improve the image and perception of Navasota, and 3.3, improve communication in general with the public. The marketing communications budget priorities this year are increase in promotional materials and swag, the revised website, which is currently already underway, publications, staff development and events, as well as distribution of materials. The goal of these budgeted items is to expand awareness of Navasota's image and continue to develop Navasota's so much, so close branding. These major budget items will allow the city to continue to engage with key partners and industry professionals, improve the image and perception of Navasota, as well as assist the city to better communicate with our residents, ensuring accuracy, consistency, and frequency in all internal and external communication efforts. Some supplemental items requested this year are an added professional development conference for the marketing communications director to attend and expand the knowledge on events and tourism efforts, as well as one-time costs for professional photography and videos to be created, which will be used to further develop the city's new revised website, which can also additionally be used on social media and with promotional assets. The tourism budget sees a slight decrease compared to the 2021-2022 budgeted amount. Major budget items for tourism this year include the Texas Birthday Bash and other events, including Public Service Recognition Week, Sounds of Summer, Freedom Festival, and Home for the Holidays, as well as tourism publications. Texas Birthday Bash 2023 includes a budgeted amount of $150,000 to spend on entertainment. We are proposing an increase to Texas Birthday Bash ticketing rates. As you can see in the, oh, I'm not over it, I'm sorry. As you can see, there is about a $5 increase between the ticketing amounts and general admissions, and there's about a $25 increase between the VIP ticketing sales. Ultimately, this increase will assist to offset some of the budgeted amount for entertainment and allows us to continue to bring good performances to downtown Navasota in celebration of Texas independence. And so last year, the city hosted a lineup announcement party at the PA Smith. This year, we're proposing to do something a little bit different and incorporate this party or lineup announcement as more of an event and host it here at City Hall. So we'd have some more local vendors come out. So it'd be more of like an additional event that we can provide to the community free of charge to
kind of help heighten that energy for Texas Birthday Bash next year. And also incorporate the sale of tickets, pre-sale, at a discounted rate at that event. So that's something we're envisioning to happen in around October of this year, to begin promotion of that. You know, this would also provide and incorporate another family-friendly free event for our residents and visitors to enjoy in the fall. Supplemental requests for tourism this year include an additional 2 events, an MLK parade and an Easter egg hunt for the community to enjoy. Additionally, an increase in the tourism publication budget to allow for purposeful tourism advertising via Texas Highways, Tour Texas, USA Today, Insight Magazine, and tourism brochures, which will be distributed around the state. In addition, a further increase of the tourism advertising budget is proposed to allow for targeted tourism, TV, radio, and social media advertising. Highlights include having YOLO Texas, which is a traveling show about entertainment, food, and things to do across the great state of Texas, feature Navasota specifically. The show would cover our town and our Texas Birthday Bash event for an 18 to 20-minute show segment, as well as promote us via their social media platforms. We will also be able to use this video in our internal promotions and across just tourism in general. So we'll have access to that video. We'll own the rights to that video. YOLO can currently be watched every Sunday on the CW network. These supplemental requests directly align with the goal to improve the image and perception of Navasota and will increase promotions to bring more visitors and sales tax revenue to Navasota.
So for the library's budget, we have 130,000 roughly for personnel, 4,000 for materials and supplies. That includes all of our programming for the year besides the summer reading program. Maintenance and services, we have 45,000 in there, just due to the roof having issues, issues with our AC, just random maintenance things that come up throughout the year. All right, so our major budget items, summer reading program, we have $1,000 budgeted for that. That includes our entertainment as well as crafts that we do with the kids. That also includes providing a small meal, hot dogs, nachos. AC unit, we have one that still needs to be replaced, as well as having issues with the drain lines that cause overflowing throughout the year. So that'll go towards that. New ceiling tiles, when the new roof is replaced, we have holes by the front and back doors that will need to be repaired, as well as some rotting wood issues and replacing ceiling tiles that are staying from leaks. Books and magazines, we have 2,500 budgeted for that. Supplemental request to join the Texas State Library Association and attend their annual conference. I came in right at the beginning of COVID, so everything has been online webinars. I haven't had a chance to really socialize and network with other librarians. So this conference will allow us to see what the most up-to-date programming is to better provide services for the community.
Mayor and Council, one of the things you'll notice in the end year estimate, she didn't really highlight on it too much, but we do have 200,000 in there for this year for the new roof. And we thought we could get it for under 50, and folks were coming in 100 and they're way higher than that now. So we have 200 in there for this year. So hopefully we'll get started on that pretty quick.
Mayor, City Council, good evening. Briefly go over the development services budget as well as T&P and technology. So total proposed budget for 22-23 is $671,539. As Jason mentioned, that's a significant increase from our last budget. And that is because code enforcement has requested convertibles for better visibility. I'll go into detail. Tesla's, they like to do. So I'll go into the details in a little bit. Professional services, they are, that's really where that comp plan and zoning ordinance update comes from. I wish I was wearing my glasses. So the total personnel, four employees, including myself, a building inspector position, code enforcement, and our permit clerk. And as Raina mentioned it previously, that position has been moved to its own department. And then currently Eric is doing split duties with Parks and Rec and code enforcement. So some major budget items, demolition of substandard buildings. That's obviously been a big key component to our focus in the last few fiscal years. Eric is doing a really good job on that side of things. There's a lot of demolition happening, but not much on city dime. So Eric's gotten really creative with municipal court to really not just always come to council for demolishing, but also go different routes. And so a lot of those demolitions, have y'all seen on the weekly updates, have been at their expense. So as a result of that, last year we budgeted 30,000 for demolitions, and this year we're decreasing it significantly, down to 14. The other is demolition of 2 pavilions. So these are the pavilions that are along Cedar Creek. One is next to Manslipscomb Park, and the other is by the Boy Scout hut. Especially the one at the Boy Scout hut. That one has significantly declined. There's graffiti. It's just really gone downhill. And instead of it being an asset, it's now turned into a really liability for the community. So the 28,000 is to demolish and basically take it down to the dirt for both structures. And the other 14,000 is also for a nuisance abatement. So that's tall grass, junk and debris on property cleanup. That one's about halfway spent this year. I'll probably get totally spent by the end of the year. And then the 18,000 backup inspection services. So in the event of the building inspector being on vacation or what have you, these funds are specifically allocated to pay that third party cost. And of course, right now with our current vacancy with building inspector position due to Jack's passing, we've been utilizing our third party a lot. They're very expensive. And so one of the things that Jason and I were discussing is that if we cannot fund the position, it's really hard to hire a building inspector. It's really a niche position that is, it's just really hard to come by. We got lucky when we got Jack, who retired from Conroe. And right now, actually, City of Conroe and I believe Bryan College Station, they're also hiring inspectors. So the thought is that if we cannot hire someone, we're maybe going to have to do some readjusting of our permit fees in order for the pass-through cost, in order for the third party to be a pass-through cost to the customer. I anticipate it'll be around 15 to 20% increase on our permitting fees. So it's not going to be anything crazy, but it'll at least keep us balanced where when we get the bill from them, that's paid by the customer through the permits.
One of the other things that Lupe and I were talking about for these specialized services where we're not given, we've only got 2 people that applied for it. And I think one of them backed out or got another job. The other one was not willing to retire and move here yet. So since that hard, these type positions along with like animal control and those type, where we're having a hard time, is we might have to look at, if I'm being creative, ways to getting some applicants. One of the ways that some cities are doing is doing sign-on bonuses, where, hey, when you first come, hey, it's $5,000. First time you come here, you get half of it. And if you're here 6 months or a year, whatever you decide on, then you get the other half. So those are some key ways where you try to get some type of movement and get people in here by enticing them with cash up front. So there'll be something we might bring to council fairly soon if we can't get any applicants in this position.
And obviously there's benefits, third party, that they're scalable, they have multiple plan reviewers on staff, multiple inspectors. But what we lose is that person-to-person customer service where they get to know an inspector by name and they come up and talk to them in the office. Our in-house inspector takes a napkin drawing for a patio versus the third party. They want everything more professional. And although lately they have been working with us and they understand that we're a smaller city, so I have scanned in some napkin drawings on our copier and sent it to them. And they worked with us on that part. So, there's a little flexibility, but obviously we would much rather prefer to have someone in-house, that gets familiar with our community. The last piece, or the last two, is a third-party plan review, Kinley Horn. So when you think about everything that planning and zoning approves, site plans, plats for subdivisions, Burger King, all the civil engineering plans, we don't have an in-house engineer. Larger cities, they have an engineering department that has actual engineer reviewers on team. So we outsource this service, and it's a pass-through cost from the development community. And then staff development, so travel and education, conferences, there's a few different conferences. One specifically is like the Code Enforcement Officials of Texas. Eric recently got his certification, so he's an official code enforcement officer through TDLR. And so there's some additional conferences and training, as well as for Hattie for permits and just building code, general education. Supplemental request, so that there's that big ticket item, 300,000. That's hoping that we are anticipating that we have a grant awarded. It's still going through the early phases right now as far as allocation and process to apply. So we're just waiting on those instructions. And once that comes out, we'll hopefully Lance, new position for grant coordinator, will jump on that pretty quickly when they get on board. And so that's the 300. And large lease plotter. There's not a large lease a large plotter in Navasota. So if you want to print a 24 by 36 sheet, which is typically your architectural sheet, you have to go to Copy Corner in College Station. So not only will this allow staff to scan old maps that we have and put in digital PDFs, it also opportunity for maybe some revenue that we'll be able to charge that to local engineers, architects, contractors. If they want something printed, Hattie will be able to help them upstairs and print out those large formats. And then that trade show.
And we can print maps too here.
And we can print maps too, yeah. And then lastly, that trade show Jason mentioned earlier, so there's just an opportunity for additional recruitment. So K&B, Keep Navasota Beautiful, that is the commission that works closely with Eric on code enforcement. Their biggest event and really only event for the last few years has been the trash off. And so there's some funds allocated for that. A lot of these funds, the reason it decreased is that got moved to Parks and Rec budget. But all in all, it's moving numbers around, but the event will still happen. And then hopefully with a new Parks and Rec person, maybe there'll be some additional opportunities for this board to volunteer. And lastly, technology, going from 472,802, and that's an increase of 61,000 from last year. So this is kind of the I don't know how you describe it, but all of the departments, all of their technology needs are in here, including any software and licensing. There's only one staff, it's my information technology specialist. Big ticket items are the largest is their telephone services. So landlines and phone lines are still expensive, or really expensive. There's a potential that we're going to have around $50,000 in savings from that 75,000 if we're able to switch over to cloud phones, and that's going to play a part in our backup internet. Encode software, so that's utility billing software, our financial software that handles our budget. That's the 73. Internet with CenturyLink, 37,000. City cell phones, 33,000. Copier rentals, 30,000. We're also budgeting computer and equipment replacement for staff, so new computers, trying to get on a replacement schedule, so we don't have old computers still being utilized, so that's 28,000. And then there's other software, 14,000, that handles our building code enforcement and development services software. Night security, that's City Hall, and then of course email and the fire hydrant flushing at 6 o'clock right now for Connect CTY. That's the blackboard. That's where that comes from. Supplemental requests. So that is a backup internet service, which will allow us to have the Verizon, or maybe not Verizon, but just a cloud-based phone system, secondary internet. And then there's also some requests of funding for cybersecurity training, and that all of those supplements were funded. So I went over that pretty quick, but have any questions on anything?
Hey, council, I'm gonna, real quick, I'm gonna cycle through public works, sanitation, and streets until next Monday. Jose's on a cruise, and I told him he gets to, we're not doing his part, he gets to do his part on next Monday. But again, if you'll just remember, Republic Services is a huge part of his budget, as well as doing a lot of the street projects, about the $500,000 project. Now it's up to Dawn. What's the button here?
Mayor, City Council. You look at my numbers, public service went up because I'm fully staffed now pretty much. It was down, it was me and we for a long time. Materials and supplies, that went down too because we moved kids fish over to auction recreation. Maintenance and services, they went up because we're at the library. The 4 doors, redone the library, AC, inspections, football field irrigation and new siding, the soccer field irrigation, maintenance, and that's it. And then that's why we're now moving 234 to 40. 84,000 of that was the but we had, there was funded in the kitchen. The money was there, but we still showed here. That was important. The capital outlay, it went up because of the swing sets we put in Woolly Park and also struck the swing set. All that up there in the dog park fence, and 9,000 that went to the new extension of skate park. And we're gonna try to put another new swing set like we got at all the stores to catch up park. So we have. No, missing the. Department is me, manager, my foreman, and 2 laborers, and we moved the money to Parks and Recreation. Major budget items, we want to put a fence in the Horlock House and the neighbors that back between. I guess it's Horlock Street, Victoria, that back fence, because that one guy who was back there was all about. Annual moral contract is $250,000. They do every piece probably wrong. We got a little bill right now because it's, there's not gone, so we save a little money this year. We're not gonna pay as much as this year. County check and survey. Survey that because those.
Still in Navasota's name.
And the catch part swing sets here too. City Hall, but we have 2 values, custodian, labor, 2 people there. And then, the maintenance services, the AC, people, the water, the PlayStation. And major budget, the janitorial supplies, building maintenance, $65,000. questions from me?
Did you want me to?
You was looking like you wanted to say something. That's what I'm following. Okay. You were looking like, okay.
Good evening, council. I'm here to present vehicle services. Vehicle services is proposed budget is of 147,595. That includes personnel, materials, maintenance, and utilities and capital outlay. Vehicle services consists of 2 employees. We have a supervisor and a vehicle service technician that we recently hired a couple months ago. And so we are fully staffed in the vehicle services department. The supplementals request that we asked for was a new drive-on lift axle for $12,000. We're gonna see if we can make some repairs on the current one and possibly maybe ask for that for next year's budget. Airport's pretty basic. 61,300 is proposed budget. That's gonna be maintenance and services. Most of that is in my ramp program of 50,000, which we get reimbursed for half of that. That's our annual maintenance program grant that we come and ask for. It's usually in August that will get approved with annual grant. So any light fixtures, runway maintenance, anything to do with the repairs of the airport is reimbursed. The water fund, we have a lot on that. This is the only, do I need to go over the revenues or just the expenses? Okay, so the total expense is a little over $10 million. That's including personnel, materials and supplies, maintenance services, professional fees, miscellaneous, and our capital outlays. In the water fund, we have a few employees in the water fund. We have myself, Daphne, Babiana, the meter technician, and the utility technician. So that is on the water fund. Major budget items. We have on the water production, we have chemicals to treat the water, which is chlorine. The water plant maintenance of 20,000, the water well maintenance of 25,000, TCEQ permits of 30,000. Water distribution is our meter maintenance. It's all of our meters, our radios, 20 meters, which are NXUs, meter boxes, meter lids, etc. That's 75,000 annual. Water main maintenance is 60,000. We're using a lot of that due to the drought. Clamps, dressers, etc. for that. East Side Water Plant is in there. That right now is budgeted for the engineering services of 350,000. We're gonna present an estimate pretty soon for the water plant, the ground storage tank on the east side of town. The supplemental request was the water fund salary market adjustment is 142,000. The 24 fire hydrant replacement project. These are the fire hydrants that do not have valves. So those are the really old ones. So we're gonna put it in a CIP project. And then the 100,000 is kind of starting to get the maintenance. These are the ones that have valves, so we can turn it off and either rebuild or replace it. So we're gonna try to go out and look for companies to come out and just do like a maintenance. We hadn't had a line item for fire hydrants, and so we have a lot that are out of commission, and that's not very good. So we're gonna get those back in commission and up and running.
When we're replacing the meters or the hydrants that have no valves, putting valves in?
Yes, sir. From here on out, all of the fire hydrant replacements will have valves on. And then, of course, we are in need of a new water well, for future development. I have an estimated cost of $2 million. The third of the cost of the impact study fee, the install of the north end, water and sewer for the airport, is estimated about $280,000. I was trying to see if I could put that in there, if I had a little room in there, I'm gonna probably add a road from Fairway Drive on the south side. There's an entry gate there that goes to the corporate ramp, the bigger ramp. I had a phone call and last week from one of the leaseholders there, on the bigger hangars, and they wanting to know if we could get a road from Fairway Drive to the corporate ramp. So if I have any money left over, that $280,000, I like to kind of add that into that project. And what that is, reason being is when they put rocks on the ramp, if it's picked up by an airplane, it will cause damage to the airplane. So I'm gonna see if I can get a road built to that. The elevated water storage tank, the ground storage tank and water plant is roughly about $4 million. When you put it in there, $4 million due to if we need to go out and look for land or purchase land, then we'll have some money in there for that as well. We're working with a developer to see if we can work something out for the elevated storage tank. So all the supplemental items for the water fund have been funded. The natural gas fund, total expense is about $6.6 million. We have 3 staff members, a gas foreman and gas technician. The gas foreman actually got the utility supervisor as well. That's Michael Bean, the utility technician and the gas technician. The gas technician will be added in this budget. Major budget items is our gas purchases, our gas meter regulators. That's for new construction that comes in. We set gas meters. That's for any upgrades, etc. The gas regulator station that is going to be engineered by Strand Engineering. That's $70,000. My public awareness and damage prevention for the natural gas is $65,000. So basically, that's just for education for the public, for 811. Call before you dig. We have to put out so much information about gas. That keeps me in compliance with the Railroad Commission. Supplemental requests, we're looking for the salary market adjustments. The Hollister gas regulator station, that's what Strand is right now currently designing. We'll come and present that to you. I put in about $315,000 just for the upgrade of the Hollister gas regulator station. It's old and undersized, and that Hollister gas regulator station feeds the west side of town. So the growth of the west side of town is increased, and so we need to increase the size. And just overall, it needs to be upgraded. So that's part of the 1.6 million. The high pressure loop system, that is to loop the west side of town, and also add another gas regulator station. That will help with the pressure and volume for the west side of town. And looping utilities is the best way to go for water and for gas. So if you have something, someone hits a major gas line, it's looped, so it's a two-way tube. If you do it one way, then it affects the whole side of town instead of affecting a small area. You get isolated. So that's why you want to loop in water and gas.
Or the new
The new meters for the gas,
gas and the water.
they're doing really good. We just retrofit the gas by putting on different registers. So basically, that's the radio that communicates with the billing department. And that works out really well because, really well for water. So if you have a water leak on the customer side, Alan gets an alert. And so he can go and inform the water or the customer that, hey, you have a water leak. Or if you have a customer that calls in and complains, why is my water bill so high? He can actually go and give them an hour-to-hour report saying, this is why. You do your irrigation or, you know. Yeah, yes, that's correct. So it is a beneficial, it's been very beneficial to the city, for the new AMI system and, water meters. Some of the water meters, you have, because they're plastic now. So, there's a tight fit. We have to go and change it out to the other type of water meters because on the end, it's plastic gaskets. And so if you twist it wrong, they end up breaking. So that's the only problem that we have with the new fire meters is, the plastic on the gas department.
We're getting better, more consistent reads out of them.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. And then I'm requesting a additional gas technician. So this will complete what we call a gas crew. Usually you have a back row operator and 2 men that are in the hole, as we say. So this helps complete a crew. So our gas technician will also be cross-trained in water and sewer because when we have a lot of water leaks, then they branch off in 2 crews and they can help repair water leaks as well. This helps out a lot in the summertime. Also, gas technician will help the gas department because of the growth. So we have a lot of gas tie-ins that are being done. And it's very hard to keep up with the tie-ins plus the water leaks. This is the wastewater fund. Wastewater total expenses requested is 2.7. We have utility supervisor, plant operator, wastewater operator, and utility technician in there. Wastewater treatment plant, that's the chemicals. So you have 2 types of chemicals that treat wastewater before it goes out to the creek. So has increased to 35,000. The chemicals have increased for both water and wastewater. The maintenance of the wastewater treatment plant, I requested 105,000. Usually it's not that high, but we are needing some repairs on the belt press, the scales for the CO2 containers, the blower motor, and some miscellaneous things are needed to help with the maintenance of the wastewater. Sludge removal, that's after we run through the belt press, then it's hauled to Brian for compost, and so that is a major item there as well. We have the wastewater permits that we have to do for TCQ and sludge removal. That's the fees for that. The lab fees were $30,000. That is when they come out and sample the wastewater, and so that's the fees that we do on an annual basis. The sewer collection, the sewer main maintenance has increased. Usually I don't have it around 20,000. But it seems like in the past, we've always gone over budget on that. So we have a lot of clay tile out there. And so I've increased some of that to help with those repairs. And sometimes we have to hire subcontractors to help us out on sewer because it is deep and we don't have shoring equipment. So I do outsource some of the sewer main maintenance or sewer main repairs to contractors.
Lift station maintenance is 50,000. That's because of the pumps, maintenance on the pumps. They also get they get rags kind of wrapped around them. They go out. So we have several lift stations that we try to maintain and keep those up and running. And that's what I have on the major budget items for wastewater. The supplemental request that I've asked for is the phase 2 of the wastewater treatment plant. It's $395, which is,
Cheap.
wait, what did I say? $395.
Jason, make sure the firefighter.
Yeah, I left some of that off. 395,000. That wouldn't be a CIP project, would it? That's good to know. So, okay, so that is consists of 2 rotors that are currently down. We have some electrical issues, and that's also to get a new 100 kW natural gas generator. So that is the phase 2 of the CIP project for the wastewater plant. And then, of course, the impact studies, the 50,000. Is there any questions?
Information for the Economic Development Corporation for the upcoming year. So there isn't much, no major changes occurring from the EC budget from this last fiscal year to the upcoming one. But I did want to point out that on our debt payment for the EDC parking lot, it is $145,423 next year, which if you look up to our revenues of $206,000, that is approximately 72% of the overall EDC budget. And then those payments will continue for 4 more years with the project being paid off in fiscal year 2026.
That's why we can't fund position.
You have no budget.
So it's not a legal thing.
No, it's because you don't have any money, but you bond it out for
Okay.
4 more years.
So some of the major budget items for the upcoming year, including that debt payment for the EDC parking lot. Also special projects. These are different grants that we can offer to business prospects. We haven't spent much in this category in the past, but it's just hard to anticipate what proposals we might get coming in a given year. And with all the growth that we're experiencing, we've had quite a few more prospects that reach out about different incentive opportunities. And then also including our professional fees such as retail coach, GIS planning tool, some advertising, conferences, and sponsorships that we cover. And for the supplemental request, the one request was for the ICSC trade shows that Jason and Lupe mentioned in their budget as well. This is for 3 members to 1 staff member and 2 EDC board members to attend the ICSC trade shows, and we usually attend Retail Live every year, so this will be on top of that, just to really ramp up recruitment efforts, especially with all of the growth that we're experiencing lately, some of the new projects that we have coming on, getting in front of those national retailers to let them know what's going on in Navasota, what we have coming our way, and hopefully recruit this upcoming year, really focus hard on that. And that's all I have for the EDC.
Thanks, everyone. So next, we're going to finish out with other funds. So on part of the other funds, we got the hotel motel fund. As you know, these are funds we received from the hotel motel taxes from our several hotels that we have. We get about $140,000. So state law says you can only spend that money a certain way. So staff had a great couple-hour session with a legal attorney for free, which was great. And so gave us some good advice. Part of that advice told us where we can spend some of our money. So we can spend 15% of the 140,000 on arts. 1/7 of our funds can go for advertising. And then we can use as much as we want that we have for historic preservation, if we have a historic preservation, and we do, a Horlock House. So a lot of the costs that have been in the general fund before under Dom's budget for parks and facility maintenance related to the Horlock House have now been moved here if we can come up with a project. And so those items, we're planning for a new roof for the Horlock House for next year and exterior painting. In addition to that, there's some exterior facade work along the side of the house that needs to be done, and so significant upgrades next year for the Horlock House has been budgeted. As we look to the 15% and 1/7, so 15% for the arts, that is a max of 21,150, and 1/7 of the hot funds for advertising, 20,143. So I've been working very closely with Sheree at the Arts Council this year. And so they've already got submissions for those grant projects. And so maybe next year we might bring that in-house and allow the Arts Council just to handle the artist residency and us handle the grants, because it's the same grants that have been funding for the last 6 years. And those are the Navasota Center, Navasota Theater Alliance, the Washington on the Brasses, and the Navasota Chamber of Commerce Red Wheats and Blues. And so based on what we're allowed to fund on those, these is just kind of what bucket are you pulling from? And so I provided this information to the Arts Council. And later on this week, they're meeting to kind of go through their grant applications and start looking at some awarding. So I don't know how it's going to happen, but we can only allot 20,000 for the advertising and 21,000 for the arts, and the makeup difference we're going to use for birthday bash. And so whether it's 3,000 on the top for arts, or for music being the arts, or 9,000 down for advertising, whatever option come out, we will program some funds in for those that event. Supplemental requests. So one of the other items we're allowed to fund for some hotel funds is wayfinding and signage. And so we've reached out and got some quotes for wayfinding signage and looked at some downtown signage as well. And so that project is going to be around 250,000. So even with all of that, if you look back, we're still going to have $500,000 in fund balance. So, and that's with spending the 250. You're going to have a pretty significant fund balance in there because we don't have historic preservation, and you're only limited to spending 15% of your revenue coming in for the arts and 1/7 of it on advertising. So if you don't have any of that other stuff that you're allowed, you're going to always have a significant fund balance. So don't sell the Horlock House. We have plenty of funds. We can keep it going and finding these different projects that we can for. So wayfinding signage. So that's the same. That's a sign that you'll see also on the highway where it says this exit and it's this restaurant or whatever. We already have them. Every year we can program some funding in there to get those signs updated as new restaurants come on. So one of the things is, I think Rail and Rise out there now. Well, now we need to add the Red Board Tavern. There's going to be a cost to add that piece to that sign. And so we can keep adding that and using that fund balance.
Is that going to include when they do the historic signs that just says
So there's going to,
historic shopping?
so we're going to do it all. So it's going to be, here's downtown, here's the Navasota Center, here's a swimming pool. Yeah, here, everything. It's wayfinding. So when you're driving around for everything. Yeah, it'll show August 4th, library, everything. Capital projects funds. So capital projects funds, this is where we put those large projects that come up. And as you'll notice in there, back in 2021, you issued bonds for $2 million or for $10 million for utility and capital project. And we've got 9.4 million projected to spend. Of course, you always put it in one year and then we reappropriate it, move it until the money's gone. But projected to spend that 9.4 million. So we have down, we started out the process of saying, hey, we're gonna issue debt for $750,000. And again, that's for the design and engineering for the fire station and for other facilities based on the facility assessment. So we met with our financial advisor, and we've also met with Jason about the cost right now of facility assessment contractor as well. What the cost for a new fire station is. We're talking anywhere from 400, 450 square foot to 600.
600 square foot.
Yeah, 600 square foot. That is ridiculous prices. So we are right now thinking about let's get the design and engineering done. Wait for those prices to come down a little and then pull the trigger on issuing debt to build the fire station. We will have to issue debt unless we find a huge grant. We're gonna have to issue some debt to build the fire station. Now, we can offset it with the grant money. I don't think we're gonna get $7 million grant to build the fire station. So just know at some point that's coming, and what that'll look like, we'll have to worry about down the road. Hopefully by then our tax base is increased, so it's not as bad of a tax increase on the INS portion side of it. But next year we're programming $750,000 just for the design and engineering. Now, talk to the financial advisor, and one of the things that we can do to not have to pay issuance costs and debt and bond that out, we can borrow from one of our funds that has cash heavy. So our water fund, we have enough, we have 104% fund balance. So we can borrow cash from there to pay it, as long as we say we're gonna pay that back and you have a specific date. And so we can work with Terry whenever we decide we want to pull the trigger on the design and engineering and work out an agreement where the water fund actually provides a loan, internal loan to the capital projects fund. We're able to fund the engineering design. But at some point, when we issue the debt, build a new building, we include that cost, and that cost is what we repay ourselves. It's called a reimbursement resolution. The council, you will approve, and that means that we can reimburse ourselves for costs we've already spent from the debt funds. Okay. Debt service fund, basically, again, this is where we pay our debt payments from, interest and sinking. You'll notice there, 1.1 million is our fund balance at the end of the audit year. And we're pulling it down to 600,000. And the way we pull that down is general fund this year and next year, we're not gonna make you pay the $144,000 debt. And when Jennifer was presenting on her slide for the wastewater, we're not making the wastewater do the same thing. So that's how it's being pulled down. Again, we've got the grant fund, revenues and expenses equal. Cemetery operating, again, we got miscellaneous income. That's mainly the sale of grave spaces and monuments and those type items. You got your board of firemen service fund, and we got your foundation of community projects fund. And real quick, we want to kind of highlight again our capital projects, CIP projects. Everyone over these, I'll make sure you understand them. For the water fund, we're looking at building a 500,000 gallon water tower with a 250,000 gallon ground storage tank and water plant. That's around $4 million. New water well for $2 million. Replacement of the 24 fire hydrants, 480,000. Extending the utility services to the north end of the airport, 250,000. On the natural gas fund, we've got the Hollister Natural Gas Regulator Station at $315,000. And then the high pressure gas loop system for Con Lake subdivision, that should be actually, 1,300,000, not 1,600,000. The total for the gas fund is 1,615. Wastewater fund, the wastewater treatment plant phase 2 at 395,000. As I just mentioned, the hotel motel fund, the capital project is the wayfinding downtown signage project for 250,000, as well as the capital projects fund for the design and engineering of the fire station and other city facilities. Again, once that city facility assessment is done, we'll have that report back to you. We'll have a work session item on that and talk about what those recommendations are, and then kind of get a priority list from council, what buildings that they prefer to see done in what order. Because we won't be able to do all of it, because we know right off the bat, animal shelter's got issues, we know the public works facility's gonna have issues, and we already know the library's got a bad roof and AC issues, so there are gonna be some issues that we automatically know, but what are those, and we need to prioritize. Real quick budget calendar, so next week we'll have at 4:30. Jose will get up here at 4:30 and go over sanitation and streets. And then we'll have further discussion on the budget. So this is when, between now and then, you send me an email of questions you might have on the budget. We went through a lot of stuff in 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's a lot of information, more information than you probably had in the past. So if you have any questions, please email me. I'll get the staff, and that'll be a time when we can have some other discussions. I want to make sure by the time we get to a public hearing where the public's up here speaking, you've had a chance to ask any questions, critique, whatever you want to do for the budget so that we're ready to approve that budget when we need to. The September 12th is when we start those processes of having public hearings and having public hearings on the tax rate, and then start doing the first readings and the second reading on September 27th or 26th. September 26th is when we approve everything. So we'll approve final reading of budget, final reading of the tax rate, and final reading of the public services rate increase that'll happen in February of next year. At this time, Susie's got a handout that I want you to look over real quick. Not a test. Not a test. Not a test, promise.
You've been paying attention.
Yeah, it's a lot of small things. So the only thing I want you to look at on that entire sheet there's 4 sheets. First sheet is the general fund, the next one's the water fund, the next one is the gas fund, the next one's the water fund. Those are your 4 funds you're required to have fund balance. Requirement is 25%. That yellow line on every page ought to not be a negative number. Okay? What you have in front of you for each fund is the actual 2021. For each fund, you have the budget for this current year, end of year estimate for the current year. And when I say end of year estimate, please understand, the budget goes out the door, the end of year estimate is the new budget. So that's why staff has went very diligently and looked through all of their line items and made sure that the end of year estimate will become their final budget for this year. So don't worry about what the budget is, what you approved last year. The end of year estimate will become the revised budget for this year. And so you have that there, and then you got the proposed budget where it says budget 22-23. And then the next 4 years are projected. And those projections are based at the very bottom on the assumptions that are down there in the boxed in green area. So for the general fund, we have a set of assumptions that assessed valuations are going to increase around 9%. Sales tax is going to increase about 5%. License and permits around 2%, and 5%, 8%, and back to 5%. License and permits, the pilot, Then you got expenditures, that's where we say, hey, this year we're adding, these new positions, these 5 positions in the general fund. Next year, projecting, hey, we're gonna add that 1 firefighter. The next year, we're gonna add the other firefighter plus 2 other positions. The next year, 1 position, and then the last year, 3 positions. So this is your assumptions. So based on that, you're looking at a positive excess fund balance. That yellow line says excess funds available. So the budget you have that staff has presented to you tonight, and based on the revenue projections for the next 4 years, plus the expenses for the next 4 years, you're going to continue to have excess fund balance. So that means the budget you're being presented is sustainable for 4 years, plus this next year. So you've got a 5-year budget plan right here for the general fund. You take that same scenario and it goes for the water fund. We got one in here for the sewer fund and one for the wastewater. Again, yellow line is all positive fund balance for all of the funds. Now, when you look at your utility funds, those are based on volume increase and rate increases, because we know we're doing a utility rate study. Once that utility rate study, it will have a little bit more science to it. The utility rate consultant we met with last week, we gave them the proposed budget plus the CIP projects that have been presented tonight that we know we have coming up. And based on that, they'll compare other cities and what their rates are. They'll look at our rates and they'll determine what we have to charge in order to meet budget, provide services, as well as pay for gas that we have to purchase and for those things. So based on those type of assumptions, we kind of, I went in here and made some, theoretical assumptions that you might have a 5% or 8% or 10% increase in the rates. And again, when we talk about percentage increases, your trash services went up 4.83%. And that's, it's only a couple, it's not even much of a dollar increase per month. So we're not talking about a lot of increase, but when people see large percentages, they think it's large increases. Whatever the utility rate consultant tells us, we need to start projecting. We need to be sure to listen to them. And if they say over a 5-year period, you need to increase your rates, we need to increase the rates. We don't need to increase it 1 year and then not increase it any other year, because if you don't increase incrementally, at some point, you're going to be hit with a large increase. Yeah, so it's not fun, and it's not a great thing that you have to do. But what you have before you tonight is a financial plan that is sustainable for several years based on these assumptions. So at this time, if you have any questions, me or staff, we entertain them.
I'd just like to ask about what your thoughts are on our overall our rating, our financial, our rating that we have, and then for the next budget, where we are now.
So I will tell you, staff does a lot for what staff can have. Staff is nearly maxed out in capacity to do anything. So we're going to need more revenue coming in to get more staff. I can't ask staff to do much more than what they're already doing now. I don't mind staying the hours and late hours and doing it on the weekends, but I can't require my staff to do that. And so in order to add anything else new or any additional services or anything like that, we're going to have additional staff. That means only way we can do that is by adding tax base. And so by adding more sales tax and getting more businesses here, adding more development. So it'd be great to have a second fire station. But I've sat down with the chief and I told him we can't have another fire station because he asked for three firefighters, that's 250,000. He wants 3 per shift, that's around 750,000 plus other operating costs. Now you're talking $1 million, $1.1 million to operate another full station. That means we're gonna need about another 1,000 based on $250,000 home values times our tax rate in order to get that revenue. And so those are ways you have to start thinking is if you want new things, what does that mean in development? Or that could mean a new Walmart. We could get a fire station and a lot more police officers if we got a new Walmart. I mean, so you have to start thinking about those size projects. One of the other pieces that we need to start thinking about is similar to when we went to TML's small town conference is development sizes. So it's great to have the 60, 90-foot lots. It would be great. But when you want to put the numbers to it, there's more, we get more revenue when we do the 45 to 50. Because we get more in, developer makes money because they sell more lots. But we get more money because we get to have more assessed valuation on more houses. So there's just ways that we need to start thinking about it holistically. But overall, financially, you're in a lot better shape than I thought we were. So when I first started the budget, I was scared to death. And the way that we did budget is the way I've done budget ever since I've been in local government. It's line item budgeting. It's starting with the base budget, starting with what does it take to operate, and then what do you need to do above and beyond, and working somewhere in between. And so staff went in line by line, put together their continuation budget of what their base budget was based on the things they normally do, and looked at every line item and everything that was being spent. Then they went and did a wish list. And yeah, it was like a Christmas wish list. And so that's what department heads are supposed to do. Their job is to tell me what they need and want. It's my job to try to figure out what we can afford and what I think we need. But coming together as a team, we're able to figure out how we're going to do it, with the first priority being finding ways to give our employees more money. And that was the #1 task, #1 goal. And I was able to accomplish that in addition to having to lower the tax rate, and we're able to add some more personnel. So I think it's a great budget for the city of Navasota. Sorry, long answer for. Any other questions?
Excellent job to everybody, all involved in putting this together. I can only imagine. Sweat. Everything else. Yeah.
Again, we will have this on the workshop next week for discussion. We don't have to put it on the council agenda other than to discuss the items that we have to, but we will have it on the workshop. Jose will be here to go over his portion. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I know that it's a lot to take in, and we want to make sure that we've answered all your questions. Thank you.
Thank y'all.
We're here.